Okay, welcome everybody to the world of sports. We are joined today by our resident expert. He's expert on many sports subjects, but definitely great on talking about the UFC, boxing, NFL football, NBA basketball, and many other things. I'm really happy to be joined by Jason Cameron. Welcome, Jason.
Hey, thanks for having me. Great to be
Hey,
here.
you're welcome.
Yes.
Good to see you. You're outside enjoying the sunshine. That's nice. I'm glad you're out in the boat. We've been cooped up too long with this pandemic here. It's nice to see when people can get some fresh air and get out.
Of course, man. Like you can only stay in your household for so long until you start to go a little bit of stir crazy. So this is me not going stir crazy and just going for a walk.
Good for you. Good for you. Yeah, thanks so much for taking this time today. I know there's so many things going on, and especially the weekend. You sometimes get cooped up at home watching so many sports, and then you want to get out on Monday. But speaking of this past weekend, another big UFC event. I was pretty impressed with the card. Obviously, Amanda Nunes was the headliner, and she dominated as usual, and really showed why she's the best woman fighter in the world. But what was your thoughts on the card as a whole?
Well, first off, I will say this. Spencer, she was super tough lady, but a little bit out of her element when it comes to quality with Amanda Nunes. So I give her credit though. Like Jesus, she lasted right to the end bell, and not many people can do that with that woman. So congrats to her. The one fight I was very much looking forward to because I was curious to see how he would come across or how he would come back from 3 consecutive losses was Cody Garbrandt. And that was his co-main event, and he hasn't won for a long time. He was at the top of the mountain, then he got knocked down a bit. And so I wanted to see what version of Cody Garbrandt we'd see. Well, he put that to rest, didn't he? He most certainly put that to rest. He put on quite a showing. So, and all in all, it was actually a really good UFC. It was a great card, great fights. And there's one other thing I want to point to when it comes to the UFC and the fights in this situation that we're all caught in with the pandemic. I want to say, because since there's no audience and there's no crowds out there, it seems to me that the fighters are more focused on the fight itself. They have zero distractions, because when you look out into that sea of darkness, just this black space, well, then all you have to do is focus on the fight, on the fighter right in front of you. And it seems that the quality of fights have been just a lot better, a lot more focused. So
yeah, I'm agreeing with you too. Yeah, I was pretty hesitant on thinking that I would like it without crowds, because definitely crowd brings so much energy. Every time I've ever attended live, I can feel the electricity in the crowd, and it just seemed to bring such a different element to it. But now we've had about 5 events without, and I'm enjoying aspects of it that the crowd isn't there. I like that you can hear the corner so much better. You can hear the strategies. You can actually hear the connections in the cage. You can hear them hitting each other. You can hear them talking to each other if there's a little bit of trash talk. And you're right. I feel like they are focused. They're just, I think they're hearing their corners better. They're making those switches and transitions better. And it's great. It's been a great element to it.
Yeah, it's added a little bit. Obviously, the audience would add that vibe, that euphoricness that you feel like that rush when you're there, and obviously that's what you're missing. But the little subtleties of the match and of the fight that you get to pick up on now, like you really get to hear those hits when they get the shin to the head, or the really big crack of the fist to the stomach, and you're just like, oh man, no. Okay, so that's what that always sounded like. That doesn't sound like a lot of fun. That doesn't sound like a lot of fun at all. And so with that being said, like that element of it is just fantastic to see, or I should say to hear. It's fantastic to hear. So
yeah, no, you know, it definitely makes it like it's not no joke. It's not like wrestling. You know, these are real fighters. These are very talented guys, and they're trying to take you out. So yeah, I think, you know, I think that was lost when, you know, the crowd was there and so much noise. You couldn't actually hear the physical contact, but having that, wow, it makes it really a lot more serious, and I like it. I don't like that a lot of young people aren't getting a chance to see it live. I find being in the arena, being you know, in amongst the crowd, I think it can create a lifetime fan. You know, if a young kid gets brought with his father or his family, his mom, whatever, and they are able to bring him to an event, I think he can be a lifelong fan just seeing it live. Seeing it on TV is great, but seeing it live, I think, is just adds so much more of an element.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Like, you know, like that goes for any of the sports now that we're somewhat craving for or really want to see come back. That, you know, like that, just bringing your family or making it a family event, and then having that just being in that environment, just being in a sporting environment is just, it's irreplaceable. It's something that you can't replicate, or at least you can't do it too easily. So
No.
hopefully once this all passes, then we can start to do that again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Speaking of Garbrandt, I did want to mention that I really liked that he came back from 3-fight losing streak, hadn't won in a few years. It had been a while. He had to, you know, mix up his camps a little bit, go to Jersey as well as being in California. I really, you know, I saw a determined different fighter from the last few losses, and that knockout was crazy. Just, you know, the buzzer was just after that KO. It was amazing timing.
It was literally a buzzer beater. It was a buzzer beater. It was a buzzer beater knockout. And when you see it in slow motion, and Daniel Cormier, I love the man as an announcer because he nailed it. Because he brought that punch from his right shoe, from his right foot. He brought it from his right foot and basically unleashed this punch that was so fast. Like, that happened in half a second.
Yeah.
And then when you see him bend down in that crouch and he looks at him like, this is it. I'm going to take your head off. I don't know if you're going to survive this punch. Like, you could see him look at him like that. Like it was straight out of a movie. And I'm like, oh, man, that's not good. And then, wham! And then it's like, oh, my God. My goodness. And then the buzzer sounds is just like, so that was a buzzer beater / walk-off knockout.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Well, the thing that came immediately to my mind was Tyson. And, you know, one of the things about Tyson that I always loved was that he involved his whole body. He would crouch down and he would use his legs and he would use his torque into his punches, and he would just, you know, hit a guy and the guy would just be done. And the funny enough, within a few minutes, maybe not even a few minutes, there was a tweet from Tyson on the corner of the screen, and he congratulated Garbrandt on it. And I thought, wow, isn't that amazing that he's watching at the same time I'm watching it, and he, you know, was congratulating him. And it just reminded me of the way Tyson just would use those legs, and they were tree trunk legs, and he would just, you know, just bring that punch, absorb so much of his energy and put it into the guy, and the guy would usually not be able to stand anymore. And it was really, it was neat for me to see that Tyson was watching at the same time I was, and you know, it was something that just brought him to mind.
Yeah, like it was, I didn't see that tweet, I'm going to be honest, but that was as Tyson-esque a right hook as I've ever seen, because he annihilated the man. Like, he hit him with the right, and then the Sun South said, that's it for me, I'm done. And he was out. They even tried to put him on the stool, and he was like, no, I'm still out. He was going to fall over. And they're like, take the stool away from him, have him sit down. And then he was still like, I don't know what area code this is. Like, that was one heck of a punch. Wow. That was one heck of a punch. It was awesome to see. And And it was also good. It was good to see a patient Cody Garbrandt.
Yeah.
He was patient, man. Like he didn't get into a firefight. He didn't get, like tricked into that. He was patient. He used his superior speed and his technical boxing, and he got the win.
Yeah. He was always involved in wars his whole life, growing up, and, in the UFC, he was always just standing toe to toe and going with guys. But, after 3 losses, you got to change things up and you got to get smart. And we saw Overeem do it. We've seen other guys, start being a lot more smart instead of just going into those firefights and just laying it all out. And whoever gets the, knockout punch first, great. But you got to change your style if you're, looking like you might lose in a UFC contract and not be in the game anymore. So
exactly, because like we just saw a fighter that we all know and love just do that exact thing, because obviously what he was doing before wasn't working, and that's Justin Gaethje. Gaethje came in with possibly that was the best version of Gaethje we've ever seen against the boogeyman, because that guy's really a boogeyman, because the amount of punishment he took. Wow. And then he had to actually have the ref come in and say, okay, we all get it. Tony, you're too tough. But this is it, though. I got to end the fight. You had to end the fight. Yeah. And
you got to save these guys from themselves sometimes. They're just tough. And Felicia Spencer was like that, as you mentioned earlier. She just wanted to go out on her shield. They were talking earlier about, maybe the corner should throw in the towel. She's just too tough and won't just can keep withstanding the punishment, won't quit. And so you got to save these fighters from themselves. And it can be a little dicey, because it's especially if it's a championship fight, they always still really have a puncher's chance. But I think Felicia Spencer gained a ton of respect, and I think she'll get some really high quality fights going on into the future. I think the matchmakers will think, wow, this girl's game. I can put her in with somebody that's going to give her a really big dogfight, and she'll be game. So I don't think she, I just really think she did a great job for herself, and she's just not in that level. There are fighters that are world class, but then there's a notch above, and that's definitely what Nunes is.
Yeah, because hey, I've seen Felicia fight before, and she's a great fighter. She's a great fighter. But you kind of knew going into this fight, unfortunately, you're just not at that level, because let's be honest here. Who the heck is? Who is at her level? Yeah. Like Joe said, like Joe Rogan said, well, what do you do now? Well, who does she fight now?
Right.
Because honestly, the only person that she could fight, the only fight that really makes sense, but it doesn't make sense now, is Valentina Shevchenko. By the way, Darren, that's my favorite fighter. I love that woman. I love the way that she fights. But she fights, as her natural weight class is 10 pounds below Nunes.
Yeah.
Right? And Nunes can go to 135 or 145. So she's by far and away the bigger fighter. Yeah. And so I don't know if you want to make that match, because literally Valentina's lost too. But in my humble opinion, I don't think she lost that first fight. I really don't. Okay. I think it actually should be 1-1. But whatever. It's just my opinion. It's my opinion. I know I'm right. So, but that's the only fight that's left for Nunes. I don't know who else she fights. Does she just continue to keep cleaning out the division like a certain somebody has already done in the past, Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson? Does she keep just doing that and recycling people and be like, all right, this is kind of cool. Just keep going and going and go. Maybe that's what she has to do. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I heard an interview with Dana White, that I think later on that night, and he said, the funny thing is in this sport, other guys, we've heard that about. Anderson Silva was just dominating his weight class and cleaning out the division, and then there was always somebody that was going to come, and George St. Pierre was doing that, and he mentioned a few fighters that were just on a higher level that all of a sudden everybody thought, well, they're unbeatable. What's going to happen next? And eventually somebody comes, and, I'm excited to, see somebody that comes and can beat Amanda at some point. It'll happen.
Yes. But the thing that he forgets to neglect to say is it did take 6 years, 6 years. All right. Right. I think Amanda Nunes is in year 2 or 3.
Yeah.
So we got 3 more years of her just demolishing people until finally somebody rises from the ashes to maybe give her a fight. And even with that being said, so in year 7, does she finally lose? Or does she still laugh and say, oh no, you guys are still not there. Oh no.
Right. Yeah. I could see her having a long reign. Definitely. Just wow. We haven't seen this dominance and outside of Ronda Rousey when she was at her top. And Cyborg, I think, was to that same point too, where everybody was scared of her. Everybody just didn't think she could be beat because she was just so aggressive and so tough, and she just annihilated her opponents. And so Amanda's surpassed Rousey and surpassed Cyborg, and now, wow, holy cow, her legacy is definitely unmatched in the women's game.
For sure, because the thing with Amanda Nunes is she has the power of Cyborg, and then she has the jiu-jitsu and wrestling skills of Rousey.
Yeah.
So if you combine those two, I don't know, you just created a monster, like a real monster, like something out of your darkest nightmares, and you're just like, oh my, you're a real person. This is a real thing. You can really do these things. It's incredible. It's incredible what she's done, and it's incredible how she's taken the baton and just ran with it. She took it from Rousey, the passing of the torch, and now she's in a different stratosphere altogether. She really is.
Yeah. Well, you were mentioning, the Cody Garbrandt knockout. Another knockout that night that happened was Sean O'Malley. What did you think of that KO? That was pretty unbelievable.
Sean O'Malley he's sneaky. He's got some sneaky power, because it looked like Wineland was in it, and I'm like, because as far as I'm concerned, I would say that Wineland was the stronger of the 2 fighters.
Yeah.
But I forget that O'Malley does have accuracy on his side. He's a very accurate puncher. And then he caught him on a counter, and it was quick, it was crisp, and it wasn't a hook, it was a straight punch, I believe. And then all of a sudden I'm like, is that it? And then he walked off. He Mark Hunted him. He Mark Hunted the man. He walked off. Like, it's like, well, I guess that's it. My job is done. I'm like, well, wait, he could. No, I guess Eddie's not getting up. Nope. Eddie's not getting up for a while. I was very, very impressed. I was very impressed, because that was the one ending to that fight I did not think was going to happen. I did not think that O'Malley had the power to knock out Wineland, because I don't believe Wineland's ever been knocked out before.
No, he hadn't. No, he hadn't. And it's amazing. I've been, I do look at these tweets, and I really think that's adding an element to these fights that is really fun. And I don't think over the years I would have really paid attention to the tweets. I would have been too focused on the fighting. But all of a sudden they started putting the tweets in the corner, and I look who's making them, and I briefly just look at the gist of what they're saying. And somebody said right as they were walking out, he said, this is probably a very unpopular opinion, but I think Sean O'Malley is going to be exposed for not being that great of a fighter, and I think Wineland's going to take him out. And I think a lot of people thought, the difference in Wineland's body, he's so much more compact, so much more powerful that we thought of O'Malley. We thought O'Malley, he's very, very slight. He's really tall, and he doesn't look like a knockout guy. But wow, did he ever impress and shock everybody that was watching that fight?
Yeah, because sometimes some of these lanky fighters, they have this sort of whiplash power, where they can whip their punch in, and it's just got this whipping motion, and then that's where a lot of power comes from, is from this whipping motion. And so lanky fighters like that are deceptive because they can catch you. Yeah. And then that's what happened to Wineland, and he slept him. He went to sleep. He slept him, and he put him to sleep like a baby, and then that was it. Because I remember, I think it was Joe was saying, and he's still asleep. He's still resting. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, hopefully, that he doesn't rest for too much longer, because then it can get kind of scary. But eventually the man woke up, and he said, hey, you caught me. And it was good. It was a good fight. It was a good step up in competition for O'Malley to see what he has, and now we know he's got something.
Yeah, he sure does. Yeah, yeah, he was cocky and he delivered, and it was pretty impressive. One of the other fights I just want to cover briefly is Aljimain Sterling. It was great to see so many good bantamweights on that card and see how the progression of these guys are going to go up and try to get this belt. What do you think of Aljimain? Wow, to me it was just the most impressive quick submission. Bam.
He came out like a house on fire. He came out like, okay, if I get this guy out of here quick, I think I'll make more money or something like that. Like, it's almost as if I just don't have the time to mess around tonight. Yeah. I'm just going to try to get this done. Like, he just attacked him. He blitzed him, literally blitzed the man. And the guy is really good. He was an up-and-comer. And Aljimain has done that to a couple guys now that had undefeated records. And then Aljo became their loss. And so he blitzed this man, and Aljo looked amazing. Yeah. He looked amazing. He looked fast, but he was just, more than anything else, he was super confident. Yeah. He knew exactly what he wanted to do to attack him. You could tell he had a mindset, and he knew, I think he maybe even pictured how that fight was going to end. And I think he knew what the ending was, so he just had to make sure that happened by going through all the repetitions he did in practice and stuff. Like, that was one of the best looking, that is the best looking version of Aljimain Sterling. So, and I think there's talk of maybe now he gets a title shot. Maybe, yeah.
We'll see. It just really made that whole division exciting. Those two huge fights on that card, and I'm so excited to see how that starts playing itself out. Now the Cejudo, retired, and
yes,
that's it. Wow, it was like, okay, let's see what happens now. And all these guys are really determined to prove who's the class of the division, and great to see Garbrandt get back in there, and it's just going to be great. I really envy those guys that are putting these matches on in the next little while in that division.
Yes, and I am super happy that the UFC did forge forth and do the things necessary to put these events back on so that us desperate sports fans had something to consume. Yeah. And so I applaud the UFC in leading the charge so that others know that this is possible. It's possible to put on sporting events. It's possible to go forward even in this new norm.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful. Bravo. Yeah, I'm so happy I'm a fan. I'm so happy that, they've been able to fill this void, and we've, it's so great to talk fighting with guys that, are like you, very big aficionados of it. And, I keep getting texts and, lots of chatter from amongst my friends and the guys that are, following the sport. And it's so, makes it fun again. I can't believe how much I've missed sports, and, to be able to have these weekends come and, talk about it as it's coming, and then during the night, and then after like this, it's just awesome. It makes me so happy. It makes me feel like, sports is coming back, and, we can enjoy things like this again.
It just gives you something to look forward to, like something else to break up your day, because these days can go on for a while.
No kidding, yeah.
And they seem to meld together before you know it. Just like the other day, I was talking to a friend, and I'm just like, wait, what day was that? What day was that I did that? But now if I can point to the day and say, wait, that was the day that UFC was on. So, no, I got it. I know what day it is.
Yeah. Before we leave the UFC, you mentioned Gaethje from UFC 249 against Ferguson. Obviously, the Cejudo fight was on that card as well. How shocked were you that he walked away from the game, retired in the cage there? What were your thoughts about that?
Well, clearly Cejudo still has so much more left in the tank, so much more to give. I was shocked, honestly, because obviously, like, he's still a young man, and I think he still has a lot to give. But then if you think a little bit more past the reasoning of why he decided to quit and everything else, well, he still has his health. He still has his faculties. And then also, too, this is me just throwing this out there. Obviously, I have no idea. But maybe conversations with upper management about how he was getting paid or the points off the pay-per-views that he was making, maybe he felt that it was just not worth his time to continue because they were not willing to pay him the money that he was worth.
Yeah.
Because obviously the man's worth quite a bit. He's a champ. And the only man that's beat him has been a guy that was one of the best ever, Demetrius Johnson. And that's it. That's the guy that beat him. You know, like, and so I don't, maybe he felt that the respect wasn't there and that the money wasn't there. And so that he just, and then also too, I know that he's a very smart man and I know he has other business ventures ready to go. So with that being said, you know, he's looking at his body and he's looking at his future and he said, you know what, I don't need to make money doing it this way anymore. Yeah. So
I hear you. Yeah. That card was fantastic for me. The Nagano KO of Rosenstrike, Anthony Pettis, you know, looking really good against Cerrone. There was a lot of really good fights on that card, but the thing that made me so happy, the thing that was most impressive to me about the whole night was that they announced that GSP is making the Hall of Fame. Obviously, he was going to, but to finally hear the words and see the clips about his career and stuff like that made me proud and made me really happy that he finally got his due in that regard. And how'd you feel about that?
So proud. So proud to be Canadian. You know, like that. If there's ever an ambassador for a sport that you ever want somebody just to be representative of that sport, it's GSP. Yeah. The man has held himself. He's one of the classiest fighters you could ever find anywhere on the globe. Yeah. He holds himself to a certain standard that a lot of the young fighters can, you know, they could say, you know what, I want to be like that. He's got respect for the game. He respects himself. He carries himself like a champion. And he's, you know, champion in 2 different divisions too as well, right? Like he always did it the right way. And he was such an exciting fighter and so athletically gifted. He earned that. He earned every single part of that. Yeah. Like he's one of the greatest ever to have ever put on those UFC gloves. Yeah, it was a proud day indeed to see him inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it was incredible for me. And, you know, Dana White has always mentioned that Canada is such a hotbed for mixed martial arts. Before the Australian cards, highest live gates ever for events here in Canada outside, you know, even higher than anything in the U.S. Was always impressed. I always thought that the popularity of mixed martial arts in Canada was just, you know, attributed to GSP and his team being able to get him on top and keep him on top for so long. And I thought it would spur a ton of really great Canadian fighters that would come into the UFC. And it has. We see so many amazing fighters. We see so many cards here in Canada now. And, you know, a typical example, Felicia Spencer, right from Montreal, you know, gets an opportunity at the belt. You know, I think, you know, the sky's the limit, and, you know, the things that are happening because of his amazing career and, you know, what he did, you know, are just going to keep coming and coming and coming for Canada and for the UFC and fighters in general.
Yeah, because basically now, because of GSP's success, he put Canada in the radar of the UFC matchmakers and Dana White. Yeah. So that now they can look at our grassroots programs and say, no, man, you Canadians got some good fighters up there. Okay, so now I'm going to pay attention. Now I'm going to try to get you guys in here because you deserve it. From, for example, like Tristan, that won in Vancouver. That's another Canadian prodigy. I've actually gone to the man's gym, and what he did that night was amazing. Amazing. He beat a man that was 2 weight divisions above because he didn't make weight. Yeah. And he took him down. Like, so if you got Canadian fighters like that, well, Dana White's all about that. Oh, give me more of that. Give me more of that. I need more of that in my life.
Exactly. So yeah. when you mentioned about Henry Cejudo and his payout for that fight, I had seen the payouts earlier, and I actually looked at it today. But I just while you were talking, I wanted to just make sure I was accurate. But
Okay.
he got $350,000 for that fight, and to me, that's not enough. It really
No.
isn't. For a guy that's double champion, has beat some of the greatest fighters, we've ever seen, and, dominated a lot of competition in those weight classes. And, to be co-main event and get 350,000, it's not enough. It's definitely not enough. And, I feel like he is justified if it was about money.
Yeah, because again, it's a respect thing. And then for whatever reason, sometimes I feel that the UFC disadvantages their smaller fighters.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that is, because a champ is a champ. It doesn't matter regardless of what weight class they're in, because he's freaking amazing. He's amazing.
Yeah.
And so you're going to take this amazing fighter and you're not going to pay him his due, because as DC likes to call him, he's a champ. You just don't have champs. They just don't grow on trees. These are once in a generation type fighters.
There's four.
Yes.
There's four. Yeah.
All right.
So, yeah.
Once
I mean,
out
of thousands and thousands and thousands of people that have strapped on the gloves and went in there, four people. It's an elite class, and he deserves so much more than that. And it's always been a frustrating aspect for me that UFC just doesn't seem to compensate, especially the smaller guy, as much. And it's disappointing to see a guy that skilled and that amazing and had that great of a career walk away at such a young age. And I think there could have been so many more exciting events and fights that he would have been a part of. The UFC's missing out big time and losing a lot with a guy like that leaving the game.
Yeah, but I hope he doesn't leave the game completely, because I've heard the man speak, and he speaks quite intelligently. So maybe a future in the broadcast booth is in his future, because once those guys get in the booth, they get pretty comfortable. I don't know. It seems that ESPN's got some money for them, so maybe that's in his future. Because I wouldn't mind seeing Cejudo in the broadcast booth, putting forth his knowledge towards the fights in the future. Maybe that is, maybe that isn't. I guess only time will tell. Yeah. But I think whatever he decides to do, he's going to be a success, because that guy doesn't lose at what he does.
No.
Just doesn't lose.
He's got such good personality. He's funny. He's got a lot to offer, and he knows the game really, really well. And to be able to study guys like Demetrius Johnson and figure out how to beat him, figure out how to beat TJ Dillashaw and Dominic Cruz, guys that were just amazing in their career as well. And obviously he knows the game really well, and his team has done incredible things with him. And he's not the biggest guy, he's not the fastest guy, but he's been able to beat everybody that's the top of that division over the last bunch of years. So impressive.
It's impressive, because if you want to talk about similarities in in a fight career, Cejudo's like Daniel Cormier, both Olympic gold medalists, and both are winners. They've won at the highest level, but both had their nemesis too. Right. DC John Jones and Cejudo at the time was Demetrius Johnson. Yeah. And they both had to overcome. Well, DC kind of never, but Cejudo did. Yeah. You know what I mean? He overcame. And when you overcome that hilltop, and then now you're at the top of the mountain, but all of a sudden you see that the top of the mountain isn't as green as some others. Right. Then you're like, well, what is this? What gives? Why? Yeah. Why? And then I understand why you would want to just say, you know what, I think I'm good, because why should he actually have to fight for his money all the time? Yeah. He's already proven it. Exactly. He's proven it many, many times over by this point in time, right? Yeah. So you just it speaks for itself. Just watch some tape. Yeah. That's it.
A guy like him, I think he's going to be successful in anything he does. And you're right, it would be smart for ESPN or even other fight organizations to try to scoop him up and make him one of their analysts, and he'll be successful in whatever he does. I'm sure he's a smart guy, and I'm very impressed with him. So yeah, I wanted to switch gears now. I think we should touch a little bit on what's happened in the sports world with so many athletes standing up and protesting over George Floyd, and all the oppression and racial inequality, and police, the problems that the police have had. It's amazing. I don't know why this particular incident is the one that has hit the tipping point, and it has just seemed to say that's enough. No more of this. Let's stop it from this point forward. Super impressed with so many of the comments that I'm seeing from so many different people, and I think the one that's resonated with me over the past few days is Roger Goodell has finally chimed in and has said the NFL was wrong in how they approached this over the last 4 years, and it was a shock to me. I think it was a shock to you. What are your thoughts on hearing that comment from Roger Goodell? In the NFL?
Okay, so I'm gonna get up for this one because it was that shocking. Because all right, so the NFL is known for being hardliners. They don't ever switch from their position, ever.
No.
Ever, man, ever. They just don't. They don't do it. They don't do it. But in this particular moment, he actually completely switched his position. I had to replay that 5 or 6 times because I'm like, nah, man, he couldn't. No, he didn't say. He didn't do it. He didn't do that, did he? Did he just go back on everything that he's put out before? Unbelievable. Unbelievable, because then it gives you hope. Because if a hardliner like that can actually switch their tone to something completely opposite because of the new information, the willingness to educate themselves, to learn about the issue, and then come back with a revised, opinion on the situation, well, then, you know what? That's great. That's forward progress. That's what we need. That's what we need, man. And I say bravo to the NFL. I say bravo to the NFL for finally realizing exactly what Cap was trying to say back then to now, that you finally realize that. And also, too, the reason why this is almost like the perfect storm for all of this stuff to happen is because we're in the middle of a pandemic and there's nothing else for us to focus on.
Right.
Once that happened, people were like this. My goodness, do they always have to deal with that? Is that a thing they have to deal with all the time in their? Yeah. Let me tell you something. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It's something that we've always had to deal with, and now everybody else literally knows.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, no, it was shocking to me as well, and great to see the NFL backtrack and say we were wrong. I wish he would have addressed Colin Kaepernick in that statement. That would have been even just much more impactful, because he's the one that exposed the NFL to it and said I'm kneeling down because of this. I think the message got convoluted because Trump got involved and said this is against the flag and against the troops and against the whole country and all this stupid stuff that was mixing the message up. But the message was always, forget this. We got to stop this police brutality, and we just got to stop this oppression and police brutality. And when Drew Brees made a statement, he was hammered, and I don't know why he didn't get the message, because he's in the locker room with these guys every day all through the season, off season too. He's around these guys, and I think it was shocking to most people that a guy that close to the scenario of it didn't actually realize what that kneeling was about. It wasn't about the flag. It was about this, social injustice, police brutality, all this stuff. And he was hammered so quick, he backtracked really fast. And I hope it doesn't, change everybody's opinion of him for the rest of his life. You know, it was a mistake he made, and he owned up to it really quick. But you know, it's good that people said, "Hey, no, what are you thinking about? It's not about that. It's about this." Please, everybody, realize this is what it's about.
Yes, of course, because like unfortunately for Drew Brees, he was what's that phrase I'm looking for? He was tone deaf. He was tone deaf. He didn't.
Yeah.
He didn't. He. It's almost like if it's not a part of my life, then I'm not really going to focus on that.
Yeah.
And it's not really a part of his life. It's part of his teammates' lives, indefinitely, but it's really not a part of his. So it took him a while to get back on the same page as everybody else, as the rest of his teammates and stuff. And I do appreciate the fact that his teammates reached out to him right away.
Yeah.
Like Michael Thomas being one of them, and said, "Oh, no. Don't confuse one with the other." All right?
Yeah.
Because there was a gentleman by the name of Dominique Foxworthy, who used to be the president of NFLPA. The way that he put it was perfect, I thought. Because it was just a different perspective on how to look at the whole kneeling during the flag. It's like the flag is supposed to be representative of the Constitution and then the inalienable rights that Americans have. Right. Now, if society is failing what that's supposed to live up to, then it's your duty to protest that. It's your right. And so that's what he should have done, because that was the right thing to do. And that was basically, in short, what Dominique was saying. And I thought, beautiful. It's beautiful because that was the best way to draw attention to the cause. Yeah. He did it. Like, he branded it in a way that it drew, people were like, what's going on here? What's happening? What's his issue? What's he talking about? And that was 4 years ago. 4 years ago, you could say he lit the fire to get us to this point, to where we are right now.
Yeah, right.
Which is awesome.
It's really awesome, yeah. Everybody, I've got Jason Cameron on the World of Sports. You're listening to World of Sports, and just want to make sure you know it's Jason Cameron here. I have a couple more comments about this. I think Colin Kaepernick, you know, was so bold and brave for doing that. You know, sacrificing his NFL career over it. You know, I don't know if he'll ever get a shot again, and you know, more than likely not, because it's been 4 years and it's really hard to, you know, get back into the NFL when you've missed that much time. But you know, guys like Muhammad Ali, when he stood up and said, "No, I'm not joining the military. I'm not going to Vietnam." He lost 4 years of his prime, and you know, look at how revered Muhammad Ali is, and always has been. You know, after that period, he was quite unpopular with a lot of people when he made that decision, and you know, he was in a lot of trouble. He had the risk of going to jail and losing his career forever. But you know, he was standing up for the rights, and you know, look at how revered he is. And I hope Colin Kaepernick, you know, can reach that level eventually at some point.
Because you know what, sometimes doing the right thing is one of the hardest things to do. Yeah. But you have to really appreciate those that can, and know what you're going to lose if you are to do this thing, which is literally, for Kaepernick, it was his career. Yeah. But he was willing to sacrifice that to further the cause. And that, not, like I said, not a lot of people have that within them to do that, knowing what is on the other side of that equation, which is the loss that you might suffer.
Yeah. Well, look at how many years it's been since Muhammad Ali and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, when, you know, he changed his name from Lou Alcindor to Kareem. You know, there was a lot of backlash, and he's always been looked at as somebody that you go to when, you know, subjects of race and inequality and you know, lots of the problems have been. But look at how many years it's been since those guys rose to prominence. There hasn't been, you know, I can't really name a lot of people in the sporting world that sacrificed so much to be able to speak out on all these subjects and just say, hey, enough is enough. Let's stop this. We have to become a divided nation. We have to become a divided human race. And you know, it's fantastic that Colin Kaepernick did it. You know, I think this NFL season coming up is going to show, you know, complete solidarity between so many of the athletes. And I think, this is a great tipping point. I think, George Floyd sacrificed for the world as a better, to be a better place. And let's hope going forward, things never go back to the way they were.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that the man lost his life, but we need to now use this opportunity for for his loss of life and for all the others to have effective change going forward.
Yeah.
We need to know, we need to do this for them so that it's just not a senseless death that didn't do anything, because all of them have been senseless. All of them not needed. Because you look at George Floyd and you think to yourself, so if he just decided not to go to the convenience store that day, none of this happens.
Yeah.
None of this.
Yeah.
But he did.
Right.
So we need to now go forward, use this as the momentum that it's needed for change, so that, as you said, it doesn't happen anymore, because it is getting kind of tiresome to see this happen all the time.
Yeah.
It is time for change. It's time for change.
Yeah. The only thing that I think about that sort of is, in correlation with this, is these school shootings in the U.S. And I don't know why some of these just haven't reached that tipping point. And everybody said, enough's enough. Let's change this. Let's make sure these never happen again. And, that's something that, we hear way too often. Happens every school year. There's school shootings. And, it's got to be scary to go to school and wonder if you're going to make it home alive, and have, you're sending your kids to school and wondering, some kid gets angry, upset. He, goes into a school and that's it. My kid doesn't come home. That's something that's wrong with the problems in the U.S. And, this has shown a big reflection on it. Hopefully we can transition and get rid of that too. There's been way too much of that.
Well, we have a chance right now. We have a chance to look within ourselves and see what really needs to change, and how can we affect that change? Like, how can we do this to make sure that this doesn't happen anymore? Because right now, a lot of us have a lot of time on our hands, lots of time. So
this pandemic has been obviously horrible, losing hundreds of thousands of lives, and it's been really tough on people's mental health, tough on a lot of people's physical health. But I think there can be positives hopefully coming from it. Changes to the world. Time to reflect. A lot of people are spending a lot more time with their families. I think it's going to, change the world. And this happened probably at a time where it has the ability to, invoke change and make things, better, make this world a better place. So.
Yes, I believe so too. Right. Because you have to get some sort of positive out of this whole situation, and if you can kind of facilitate some sort of personal growth in your own life, then you know what, this is your opportunity to do that. This is your chance to do that.
Yeah.
And then also too, if it's your chance to educate yourself on issues that you didn't know of before, it's also your chance to do that too. So the more information, the more education you have, the better off you're going to be, and the better off society as a whole is going to be.
You're right. Couldn't have said it better. Excellent. Yeah. Switching gears now a little bit. We're speaking with Jason Cameron on the World of Sports here. I want to talk a little bit about the NBA. I'm excited. I've been really starting to look at possible matchups. I've been starting to think about how unique it is that they're just playing these last 8 regular season games before they get the playoffs rolling. There's not going to be a lot of movement, so you can start really seeing how these matchups are going to be put together. But the one thing about the bottom of the West Division, Western Conference, really makes me excited. The Grizzlies with Ja Morant, they're in the 8th position, and they got to fight off all these teams that are trying to catch them. They have no chance to get to 7th, so it's 8 through about maybe 10 or 11. Has a shot at that last position. It's going to be really great. Him and the Blazers are going to go at it. The Pelicans, and I think it's going to be a bit of a fight for that Rookie of the Year. I think Ja Morant deserves it, but if Zion can get in there and knock the Grizzlies out, maybe they give it to him. But what are your thoughts?
Okay, so this is what I'm going to say. Ja Morant actually should win Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
But if Zion Williamson wills his team into that 8th position, wins 8 straight games, and plays out of his head, then I don't know. I'm not sure. But because, honestly, Ja Morant has actually played the entire season. He is a fantastic player. He has shown his quality. He is that good. But then Zion Williamson is this athletic freak of a man. He's like a tight end playing basketball. It is ridiculous. And he can jump through the roof at 280. I don't know how he does that. Nobody knows how he does that. And so I'm excited to see this particular playoffs go forward, because this is one of the first times where you can just say, well, I don't know. It's going to be a LeBron and a Steph Curry team, whatever, This time, it's anybody's game. Yeah. Anybody can win this. Anybody. Yeah. This is the most parity that we've seen in the league in years.
You're right.
Years.
Yeah.
And so I'm super excited to see them get going again. I like the fact that they're doing some regular season games so they can get back into the swing of things, because those guys are not going to be game ready, or at least not playoff ready, not yet. Yeah. So they do need some games to, tighten up the game and back up again and get it all going again. So, but yeah, man, I'm excited. I'm excited. Yeah. It's gonna be a little bit weird to see, basketball games played without fans and stuff, but whatever.
Yeah. Well, it's such a contact sport that I get it. And they were the first, league to say, whoa, Gobert gets coronavirus, and then they shut down, and then all the other leagues followed suit. So it was, it was them, and they definitely had some troubles with coronavirus in the early stages. And yeah, it's going to be weird. All these sports are strange without fans. It's just a whole new world, and it's going to be really different. But, to have it in a hub like that, and, to be them all there, and they're just 100% focused on basketball. Nobody's out partying. Nobody's out, just trying to find ladies all the time. It's just like, hey, I got to focus on, 2-3 months of basketball, and, as much as I can will my team to get to places. It's going to be great. I think, yeah, like you're right. We just had 4 years in a row of Golden State and Cleveland, and, it was just sort of inevitable. Started the season, everybody predicted that, and it happened. And this year, there's a lot of wild cards. There's going to be a lot of interesting matchups, and you just don't really know, because a lot of these guys had no ability to keep their basketball skills up, so they're going to have to use this 8 games to get there. But some of them, they need those 8 games to seed themselves properly and, have the best matchups. And if guys have just been sitting on his couch eating hamburgers and just hanging out, he's not ready for the season. Look out. So stuff.
Yeah. No, it's kind of funny, because it's almost like we're going back to the 80s style, where you got back into game shape by playing. Right. You didn't come to the practice and stuff already in shape like they do now. You just came and it's like, I've been on the couch about 3 months straight. I got a lot of weight to work off. Yeah, let's try to get this done.
It was Allen Iverson's 45th birthday yesterday, and I saw some tributes to him and lots of highlights and stuff like that. And of course they played that famous practice. You talking about practice? and it was hilarious, just to see that, because he didn't like to practice, and and a lot of NBA players really don't. A lot of athletes don't really like to practice. They know how good they are. They know how skilled they are, and they can show their talents when they get on the field, on the court, whatever. But guys like Kobe, guys like Jordan, when we saw The Last Dance and saw how brutal he was in practice, how relentless he was with his teammates. Kobe Bryant got the Mamba mentality after seeing Jordan and trying to raise to his level. I think a lot of these guys have realized, wow, practice is pretty important, and I better, be in shape and come to the games at my tip-top level.
Well, of course, because you can have all the God-given talent in the world, but what if you what if you add to the God-given talent iron work ethic along with that? Hey, I think I know what the answer is. You get like Michael Jordan. You get 6 for 6. You get to go to the finals, and people go, well, that's a done deal. He's going to win again. Okay, so what about next year? That's what you get. That's what you get once you're willing to literally, as Jordan said, sacrifice everything to win and to drag your teammates along with you, kicking and screaming, whether they want to come with you or not. You don't care. You got championships to win.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, no, I mean, that last dance, it was really, really amazing for me just to see the level of commitment he had and the will to win. And, you know, unfortunately, it can't fly these days because, you know, people are so, you know, hey, that's bullying tactics, and, you know, hey, you can't talk to me that way. And so, you know, we're probably never going to see somebody, you know, be able to will their teammates to levels that, you know, Jordan was able to bring them to. But, you know, really great to watch. And, you know, one of the things that blew me away the most was just the unprecedented access that they gave this camera crew, you know, just able to go in there and be there every day and ask the questions and, you know, have an ability to really, you know, find out on a day-to-day basis what it took to, you know, bring those 6 for 6. It was amazing. And incredible.
It was refreshing to see the curtain pulled back. And then, because you've always seen Michael Jordan as the professional that he is, the basketball player, always conducting himself in a certain way and yada, yada. This time, you actually got to see what the man is all about.
Yeah.
It's refreshing, man. Like, he's cussing. You cuss?
Hilarious, yeah.
Like I was just like, oh, this is fantastic. This is great. And he had some of the best one-liners in there. And like, you know, even when he's talking about, you know, certain guys, and you could feel that I'm still pissed. And like when you talk about Clyde Drexler, he goes, yeah, I took offense to that. It's like, I think you still take offense to that.
He still holds grudges on guys for sure. Yeah. And he used that as fuel all the time. It was hilarious. He would just look at a team and think, okay, what's going to fuel me? How am I going to get mad at these guys? What is it going to take? And who do I hate? You know?
Yeah. Like, and it's just funny because then some people are just, well, yeah, I don't want to say nothing. Like, there's a great story. There's a great story of Kevin Garnett when he first came into the league as a rookie. And then, so he's playing with the Timberwolves, and his guard, Isaiah Ryder's having a great game against Jordan. And Kevin Garnett's like, oh, you got him. Oh, you got him, man. Oh, you just keep handing him, giving it to him. Just keep giving it to him. Yeah. And Isaiah's like, hey, man, keep your voice down. Keep your voice down. And then he goes to Jordan, the rookie. He doesn't know what he's talking about, Mike. He's like, MJ's like, oh, yeah, that's pretty cool. Yep. And then Isaiah's like, damn, it was too late.
That's an amazing story. And Reggie Miller has a similar story. And, you know, a lot of guys, when he came to Vancouver, you know, one of the guys started chirping him after Jordan was having a slow first half, and boom, he turns it on and, you know, lights him up and wins the game easy. And, you know, he was amazing that he needed that fuel all the time. He was always on, but, you know, at times he just needed that extra boost just to, you know, step on their neck and finish it off, and just, you know, that was it. Done deal. Yeah.
Like, especially, like, let's say that if he had a bad game and then you said something to him, then all of a sudden it was just like, what did you just say? And it's like, all of a sudden, oh, man, he's having a game of his life. What did you say to him? Why did you do that? Don't tug on Superman's cape. You don't say nothing to Michael Jordan. You just go, man, you're doing great, man. Like, you pump him up.
Exactly.
Don't do the
opposite. You know, speaking of Jordan, so great to see. You know, he's pledged him and Air Jordan Brown $100 million to, you know, this cause. And, you know, I'm so proud that, you know, he is finally taking a stance. You know, there was a lot of criticism of him in his early career, and, you know, not from me, and, you know, not from a lot of people that appreciated so much about him, but, you know, he did receive that criticism that he wouldn't take a stand, and, you know, he had a public image that he wanted to, you know, have at that time in his life. But you know, it's amazing to see him, you know, speak openly these days, and also, you know, get behind causes like this is really, really awesome.
Well, yeah, because like now that he's been away from the game, he actually has the flexibility of not actually always have to worry about himself or his brand or how his brand's perceived and everything else that goes into that.
Yeah.
Now he can just be like, no, I didn't like that. Okay, we're going to do something about it because Michael Jordan, I have a lot of money. I have a lot of money. Oh, man, okay.
Yeah.
And that's fantastic. That's fantastic that he's willing to pledge that much money for this because like himself and like so many others, we see it. You can see that this is our chance. This is our chance to get all of it back to where it should have always been, to the equal level playing field for everybody across the board.
Yeah,
this is our chance. And okay, so Michael Jordan didn't do all of that for most of his career. I'd say 100 million should absolve him of all of that.
You're right. Yeah.
I would say 100 million should absolve him of everything. So yeah.
You're right. Yeah. We're on the World of Sports today, speaking of Jason Cameron. You know, I just want to finish this off with a little bit of a basketball commentary. You know, this season to me was one of the worst in NBA history. It was just really tough to see Steph Curry get hurt, really tough to see Zion not be able to start his career properly off. There was, you know, a lot of issues and difficulties, and then all of a sudden, you know, wham, we were hit with Rudy Gobert, you know, acting really nonchalant when he gets the coronavirus and infecting his teammates, and you know, having the league be the one that gets shut down, and you know, all these difficulties that were happening in the sport. And then all of a sudden now, you know, we're a month and a half away from, you know, them being able to redeem this season and being able to go forward and have an amazing playoffs. And, you know, wow, it's amazing how a few months can just change so many different things in life. And, you know, this is great. I'm so excited for the NBA. I've been a basketball fan my whole life, but, you know, there hasn't been as excitement levels as I'm seeing, you know, here and there. And wow, this is going to be fantastic.
Yes, I am super jazzed and excited to see the NBA finally come back. Just because of what I've mentioned before, the parity in the league is unprecedented right now. It's anybody's chance to win. Shoot, even James Harden, he's got a shot with that weird offense where nobody's above like 6'8". I have no idea. I didn't think it was going to work, but it works.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see what happens with that offense in the playoffs. I'm just overjoyed to see sports slowly trickling back into our society, and I'm just very happy and fortunate to see this playoffs go off the way it's going to go, because I think it's going to be epic. I think it's going to be fantastic.
You're right. Yeah. I did want to touch on the NFL. You know, the funny thing about the NFL is because of the timing, they were in their off season. This coronavirus hasn't really affected them. They were able to conduct that draft. You know, obviously it was a different draft, not having the players all gathered together in a theater or whatever arena. But you know, I thought they did an amazing job with the draft, and you know, seeing the guys in their homes with their families, you know, reacting to getting drafted. That was really fun and really great. And, you know, there has been a lot of movement in the off season. Obviously the biggest movement was Tom Brady going to Tampa Bay, and, you know, Gronk coming back and joining him. You know, I think that rejuvenates that franchise and you know, that whole division. And, you know, there's been a lot of movement, a lot of exciting things to look forward to. And, you know, they're going to just be able to hit the ground running and, you know, have an amazing season, I think, like usual.
Oh yeah, man. Like Tampa Bay's, yeah, you could say now that Tampa Bay is a legitimate threat to get to the Super Bowl. I guess the only question is, how's Tom Brady going to look when he comes back? You know, like, because it seemed like he was beginning to lose a step from last year. Like, you know, that playoff game that he lost, usually Brady pulls those games out.
Yeah.
So with that being said, you know, he's got better receivers there and better weapons now in Tampa Bay than he did in Patriot Land.
Yeah.
So let's it'll be curious to see what he can do.
Yeah.
I'm very curious to see what he can do. And also, too, I'm kind of curious to see how much longer he wants to keep doing this. Like, is this his last year? Does he got another year? Like, honestly, come on, man. Like, how long does he want to play for?
Exactly. Yeah.
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 We'll see. We'll see.
And I kind of just wanted to end it with talking about boxing. I know that you said you weren't focused on the fight tomorrow night, but I think it's the first boxing card since the pandemic hit, and Top Rank Boxing is putting on a card. One of the fighters, Michaela Mayer, her name is, she tested positive for coronavirus, so she's off the card, and that was the co-main. But the main event is Shakur Stevenson, and obviously I think he was named for Tupac Shakur. I think he was destined to have a very prominent life, and some of the reports that I've been seeing about him blew me away. And I know you're much more tuned into boxing than I always am. I'm a little more on the UFC side from combat sports. Love boxing, always have, but you seem to be more tuned in. I just wanted to touch on a little bit of with Shakur, especially him being compared. He's even comparing himself a little bit to Mayweather, and it's hilarious to do it at his level. So far he's 13-0 compared to Mayweather 50. But some of these stats that I saw over the last few days blew me away. He only gets hit with 4% of jabs that guys throw. And if you can't hit a guy, how can you beat him? He faced the guy that he faced to get the belt. He only hit him 4 times in the whole entire fight in 12 rounds. Just tell me about your thoughts on him, and how has he become so amazingly dominant like this?
Okay, well, Shakur Stevenson, from what I know of the young man, he's always been a winner. Like his amateur career and his Olympic career, it mirrors to a certain extent another boxer, Andre Ward.
Right.
He's literally that good. Yeah. He is that good. And then you see the fundamentals, the way he sits down on his punches, the speed, but more than anything is his defense. His defense reminds me of like maybe a hybrid between Pernell Whitaker and Lomachenko. Wow. Just how he can slip his punches and stuff. He's incredibly hard to hit, which makes the other fighter frustrated, which also makes the other fighter make mistakes that he definitely capitalizes on all the time. Usually great fighters gravitate towards other great fighters. Yeah. I've seen Terrence Crawford seems to be watching that guy's fights. Well, he's doing that for a reason, because the guy's really good. And that great fighters will follow other great fighters, and they will encourage them, especially if they're younger fighters. And a lot of great fighters love watching this kid fight. And I've seen his highlights. It's impressive, man. And you're right. You can't hit your man. How incredibly frustrating is that? Where you're just swinging. You're just like, get tired. I can't hit you. But you keep punching me in the face and then punching me in the liver. Oh, my goodness. I don't think I'm going to win. And you're going to get discouraged very, very quickly. And I think the sky's the limit. Yeah, you know what? Obviously, boxers should have supreme confidence. Maybe I tone down to talk about Mayweather until you get to, I don't know, maybe 38-0, 40-0. You got a ways to go. He's got a ways to go before he gets to that point. But you know what? Sky's the limit for that young man. He's going to be a great fighter and a great ambassador for the sport, so far as I can see. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to the fight that happens tomorrow night.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I'm really excited. Yeah, it's something that I feel like must-watch TV for me, and I really can't wait. I've been dying to see some boxing. I was supposed to be judging some fights locally here, during this pandemic that got, some of the events got canceled. I had tickets to some local boxing, and there was some fights that got canceled. Nobody knows when they're coming back. And, to hear that they put this card together and to have him, it's exciting. I love a guy that has comparisons to some of the greats. And, you mentioned Andre Ward. That's his hero, I hear. Somebody that has, immediately sort of jumped into his corner and mentored him, and maybe saw a little bit of himself in Shakur. And another statistic that I heard that just blew me away was there was since 1992 Olympics, 17 American males have won medals, and 11 of them have won world titles since after they turned pro. And he did it the third youngest ever. Mayweather, De La Hoya, and him, on that list. To be on that list for anything is just, incredibly spectacular. And I think the sky's the limit for him. We'll see if he can keep developing his power and can keep, stymieing these guys, but so far so good.
Yeah, as he goes forward in his career and as the competition gets tougher, as long as he still maintains that ability to just put guys away and frustrate guys, he's going to have a very, very, very successful career. Yeah. And his opponents are going to be very, very frustrated when fighting him.
Yeah, next time we talk, come with some matchups that you've heard been put together. Fights for us to look forward to. You always really make me a lot more tuned into the boxing game when you tell me, hey, Lomachenko's fighting, you can't miss it. Tell me some of the fights that you've heard about. I know that you always have a huge library of fights that you've recorded and you're going through and keeping on top of all the games. So. I really want you to tell me who I should be focusing in on and watching for next time.
Well, now that boxing is actually getting back underway, you bet I will be giving you some of the great matchups that are going to be coming down the line here in the future, for sure.
Nice. Well, man, it's been great. It flew by. I really appreciate your time here, and I'm gonna sign off. Anything else that you'd like to say before we call it a day?
No, I just want to say this has been a pleasure to talk with you about sports, and I look forward to doing many more of these in the future with you, my friends. Excellent.
Yeah, same goes, Jason. Yeah, thanks so much for your time. It's always great talking sports with you. You're a wealth of knowledge, and you bring a lot of humor. You bring a lot of really passionate opinions and everything, and I love it. I can't wait for next time, and we always appreciate it. Thanks so much, Jason Cameron, World of Sports. Thanks so much. Just hang on. Well, that was great as usual, Jason Cameron. Coming with so many great opinions. Humor behind it, and what an addition to the World of Sports podcast that we have here. It's fantastic to get a guy that, can shed so much light on so many different sports and do it in a fantastic way. I can't wait every time I get a chance to talk to him. He just sheds so much light on the world of sports and just, has a really amazing, unique perspective on it. And I hope you enjoyed it as much as I do. He's going to be definitely a weekly thing, and even more at times when some big events come. We'll be able to bring him in and chat with him about the world of sports and the things that he focuses in on and things that I love as well. So thanks a lot for joining us, and I really appreciate your time. You can tune in where you get your podcasts and listen to the World of Sports. And let's make it a regular thing. Thanks so much. Love you. Take care. Bye for now.